appreciate what you do. Hello, Scott Mendel, and everyone.
Hello,
Welcome
Gary.
to Awaken Hidden Truth.
It's always fun to start recording to start a show because it surprises Perry, and then she's very up, and her energy is engaged, and it's with me, and it's fun, and it's more exciting and vivacious and energetic for people who watch the video later. Sometimes these recordings have a very serious tone to them, but it's not in any negative way. It's to get across the truth to people who are terrified of really hearing it. They want it badly, desperately, but there's a subconscious fear that holds them from really embracing it. And it takes a while for them to trust themselves to embrace it when it crosses their path. It's nothing to do with having personal power or money or fame or fortune. My work's not about any of that. Never has been, never will be. It can be relatively little known or known all over the world or the entire universe. I can say that I am known, and this work is known in the multidimensional creation, especially in the higher realities, more than I'm known on Earth at all yet so far. So it's not about having fame and fortune and living well and, in a body in a mansion in Beverly Hills for an illusion of so many years till you grow and die. It's not about any of that. It's about helping and assisting a change for the first time in the multiverse that can make it possible for the old failed experiment of evil and good to be retired permanently, to be replaced with that which has been tested, true, necessary, and kind, and that will actually work in the lower dimensions of time and space so that we can fulfill our purpose to be custodians of the worlds and galaxies and dimensional realities and be good caretakers, kind people, to make them mirrors of the realities that are above the void that don't have any negative nature. That's the whole point of all of this. So when this is put out as a telepathic vibration through the hue, which moves around me and through me and isn't all behind, it's behind all life, then it begins to work with this golden white hue energy to transform the compacted, thickly, grossly compacted negative emotions and imagination that are inside the atmosphere of this planet, affecting people. Everything that was ever done to anyone, from the worst torture and death to the nicest things, still floating around the atmosphere as thoughts and emotions, measurable like on an oscilloscope with like micro voltages that go out from the being thinking and feeling these things, and affects, has a reaction with the energy around us, the universe. It affects the toroidal, the 0 point, the one energy, and it co-creates whatever we put out there, good or bad or both. That's why Earth is such a mess, because people are putting out both. They don't even know that's not the right way to go about living. They're supposed to know how to put out constructive, uplifting, creative imagination for the good of all beings, not just life on Earth, all of it. Until people on Earth start to do that, they will be trapped and stuck here in bodies circulating one life after another with no memory, because they cannot be trusted and they're dangerous. So, and this goes for me or anybody else. If we have to establish ourselves to be trusted in the higher realities from whence we once came long ago as beings, before there were even physical human bodies available to run. And we have to do that if we want to be free as beings, to co-create with the source and run bodies without being trapped in them. That's required. There's no shortcut for this one. So the simple fact is that in the beginning, before the lower worlds of time and space were constructed, there was this first sound that was emanated from that source, and it created divisions and dimensional divisions and a void, and all the lower planes of time and space, and the silent mentors and mechanics of the universe brought all these different things into creation, and they maintain them to this day. In the beginning, the lower dimensions of time and space were made to be training grounds for mastery. Mastery meaning how to properly co-create with the source to come up with new ways of doing things for the good of all life, in the upper worlds where there is no negative nature, and in the lower worlds where positive and negative stream equally. It was meant to have a third energy, keeping those two like the yin and yang symbol, in harmony with another energy around it, to manifest things without karma, cause and effect. If people manifest things with part negative and part positive, they create opposite forces. And if there's enough positive, it'll bring something into creation, but it's also going to have a balance of negative in it. And the principle is that the negative and positive are always moving from one pole to another, like a wave. Positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. And so when people get into trying to predict things working in that energy, one time they're right, one time they're wrong, one time they're right. There's no consistency, no reliability in that. And you have to get above the dual energies to properly predict or see what's going to happen. And beings that can do that do not mention it to beings in the lower worlds, because the beings in the lower worlds would just take it and pervert it this way and that way and this way and that way. And the whole message gets lost very quickly in misdirection. So I've mentioned this before on these shows, that the nature of what people call the Supreme Being, and I'm not talking about a space god or someone in the lower dimensions that runs those realities, I'm talking about the source itself beyond the void that is known to certain esoteric groups to exist as a barrier of energy between the lower dimensions of time and space and the higher realities that don't have time and space and are not negative in nature. They do exist, and this is how it was created. It was not meant to be a trap for the Atma, running bodies and having fun with bodies and then getting lost in bodies until they forgot even who they were, how to get back across that void. The fact is that everybody living, running a body on any world in any system, Atmas running animals, everything, originated above that void at one time as pure energy. Individualizations of this pure energy, this one source, this prime creator source. And it put out a sound that runs through a first creation, that runs through all of the dimensions that have molecular matter making up, molecules and protons and electrons and DNA and bodies and planets and suns and stars. But that void, that so-called black void between galaxies you see in space, is not empty. It just appears that way to the limitations of human eyesight for people on Earth. So they see it as black, but it isn't. And it's vast. It's just the energy that all these little galaxies float in. The energy between them is infinitely more vast than the size they take up in space. And they're floating in something else. And it's that something else energy that is the first sound. It is not atomic or nuclear in nature, but it is energy. Individual beings like us are comprised of that energy, the same, but from a much higher level of reality originally. So when you look at the entire multidimensional creation, objectively and subjectively, and you can be anywhere as a spherical being, the Atma, or what people on Earth call soul, in this energy form, and seeing and knowing things in a holistic, a complete way. And then you can plug into that one energy, which is it's all knowing and all seeing, and it's omnipresent, and it's a living force, but it is not an individual being. It is not a god to be worshipped. It is a force, an energy that emanates from the source. And that source never required or requested that we ever worship it. It only requires that we respect it, know it as a direct experience, and know the creation of the multidimensional universe and function as multidimensional beings to help co-create it better than it has been so far. That's our job as individual Atmas. Really, honest. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And everyone that is an Atma now, sooner or later, is going to be doing that. That's their destiny. It isn't about having a body, a perfect wife or maid for children, or living and dying and then losing your fortune, your Academy Awards and whatever it is, and doing it over and over and over again. It's about knowing what you are that runs a body so you can be who you are, that has never existed in time and space, ever. And yet it's floating around in an energy that also is not time and space. The void between all things that float in it is not time and space. Time and space is only measured in the things floating in it between points in it. There's no time and space in the void between galaxies or between dimensions. And this is a great, great key, a great secret about how to discover how to work with this toroidal or 0-point energy. It's really divine spirit, if you want to call it that, but it's not something that we're meant to worship and pray to meet all of our little petty needs. It's something that we are meant to imagine properly and co-create in it, to get it to build and bring into manifestation the things we imagine, because it's a co-creator with us. It is the one power that manifests or unmanifests all things. We, as individual beings, drops in a mighty ocean of this power, are not the one power. We aren't the power that changes anything. But we can create with it, and it can co-create with us to bring things into manifestation. That's important to know that. So it obviously makes sense that we imagine only that which is of an uplifting, benevolent, kind nature towards all life. And to do it, if somebody wants to embrace being a free Atma, floating in the multiverse and getting around and having a body, even having kids, doing what they do, but knowing what they are that isn't those physical things, then they have to become aware and be able to respect the vast amount of life that's in the multidimensional creation. The individual Atma has the capability built into it to know this, to understand it. The individual brain of a human body on Earth does not have this capability. It's never been trained in any of this from birth, growing up with the things it learned in this lifetime on this planet. So it's not in here. It's in the Atma running this, and that is not the physical body or brain. What we imagine with is not created in the brain cells at all. When people on Earth begin to understand this, their psychology and psychiatry and other things will change dramatically, because they'll be able to address where the mind and emotions really are, and they aren't even on this dimension. I'll say that again. The mind and emotions aren't even on this dimension. They are representative physical forms people are running as individual Atmas on higher planes above the physical universe. The astral, the next one up, that's where all emotion comes from. Causal, causation, learning that. Mental, thought. Etheric, that's more of a telepathic, a deep, what they call subconscious, but up there it's not subconscious at all. And it bridges the gap across the void into the higher realities. If someone's aware that they can connect across that vast void, it takes a certain amount of light and wisdom to cross. They can cross it, and then they can explore the realities that exist above the void. People that don't believe or don't even know there's anything above it will not imagine it and will never go there. They will just see the void as the end, and that's it, because they don't know any better yet. So if I asked a person on Earth, what is it like to imagine being in the fifth plane above the void that has no positive and negative energy, no time and space? What's it like? What's the energy like? What would you be like if you found yourself there? There's only one way to get that across to people. First, the information, which is just information. Then a little bit of guidance, and then they have the experience for themselves. Without that, they will not know anything and remain in doubt and fear. So we want to impart to others the best we can, with many others, most of whom are not even on this planet, how they can have their own direct experience, create their lives differently with that one living energy out there. If you think about it, people on Earth are brought up in a way so they're putting out negative and positive streams of thought and emotion every day. And the two neutralize each other. So it grounds the energy that could be used to explore the multiverse into the Earth, and they stay around the body thinking they're a body until they die. This is the sad fact of most of the people on this planet are living like this. And they don't even know that that's not normal, and they're not supposed to really be stuck like that. Now, this goes back in galactic history, a history people don't have any idea existed at any time that put them here with no memory. And it's a scary thing to explore such suppressed understandings of past, because they weren't always kind experiences. People die anyway on Earth, so confronting death in another life somewhere else or somewhere out in the universe that put you here is just confronting the memory of an experience. You're not going to have the terrifying experience again, but it's recovering that which is suppressing a person's ability to use higher faculties. Fear and negative emotions will not allow a person to use those higher faculties, because those higher faculties of the Atma do not work in negative and positive energy at all. They only work in the pure energy that surrounds molecular matter, like planets and moons and suns and stars. It will work in space. You cannot record negative things in the energy of space. There's no oxygen there. There's no action reaction out there. It's a void. It's nearly absolute zero out there as far as cold and hot is concerned. But that's only relative to physical bodies, not the being. Anyway, sound and light, what is it? People see light from the sun. They see things reflected off plants and animals and sky and airplanes and cars and buses and cities and, us looking on Zoom at each other. And they see all this with physical eyes and hear all this with physical ears. But in reality, the being really hearing and seeing this isn't even physical. It is energy. It's like a telepathic thing. The eyes and ears communicate what the body sees and experiences to the Atma running it. In the case of most people on Earth, the Atma, for whatever reason, has been made or suppressed to be unconscious, unaware of what it is. So it identifies with the brain and body as who it is when they think or imagine anything, when they look in a mirror. But that's not what's seeing what they're imagining. If a person's looking out a window in a living room at an ocean and they're imagining being in a spaceship flying between planets or moving out of their body as an atmospherical being and moving around, they're actually doing it, but they have no consciousness that that's what they're doing. They're taught on Earth in a negative way that that's just fantasy. They're just making up this in their brain. But the fact is, there's no mechanism in a human brain to show a motion picture screen of imagination on a screen between one half of the brain and the other. There's nothing in there that can do that. It doesn't work like that. I've brought this up many times. This is more advanced knowledge or understanding of how beings run bodies, how brains work, how the pineal gland is the controlling gland for the being to run a body that is not the body. It's one of those most suppressed understandings on this planet. And beings that are tyrants that knew what the pineal gland did would suppress that knowledge. They don't want it out amongst the public. Because when people start to remember that, they begin to remember how they're controlling the body, and they stop believing they are one. They stop that illusion. When the body ceases to function, you're going to have to be knocked out of it and see all this. You're not a body anyway. And people go through it all the time, yet they still come out of their body at death in fear of not knowing anything about who they are or what they are. And that fear draws them to other fear, to other beings, and pretty soon they're right back in another body with no memory. Action, reaction, cause and effect. One of the primary laws of the physical universe. So what we think and feel creates our surrounding reality. And if we get help from beings who are not trapped with subconscious minds, or not on Earth, and master teachers and the beings that run the higher worlds, the higher realities, they can help us to change the illusion we are suffering from in amnesia and unconsciousness on this planet. They don't force it on anyone. You have to ask for their assistance, and you have to be humble. You have to be real. They don't request, any of the beings I know never request that you worship them. They wouldn't even tolerate it. But they do insist that you respect them as they already respect us, the potential we are, and each other. Beings are not going to travel very far, get very far out in space, or evolve very much further as human bodies running spaceships or anything like that, nor be able to play amongst the most advanced spiritual and technologically evolved races until we're able to stand in our own gravity, in our own center, with our own dignity with them, without bringing a lot of our garbage to the table out there, because they're not going to tolerate it anyway. And they command the stars. They're not tyrants, but they're not going to let us go out there and take our weapons of mass destruction out there and radiate the universe? No. No. Would you? Of course you wouldn't. So the illusion that's being portrayed for the public on this planet is that you got all these different countries and nobody gets along and everybody's arguing and throwing spit and vomit at each other to get elected or to be, in power temporarily. And the most fear they have is losing that power, and then it's gone. And they're left with the repercussions of it. People on Earth are left with this suppressed, classified illusion that there are no extraterrestrials or there's no proof. There is no future for this planet going forward in space travel or faster than light or any of the things you see on TV or in shows, which some of them are very inspiring. But there's no future in any of that, the way we treat each other on this planet, the way we are. Because the races out there that are not tyrant, and they're the predominant races out there, have already quarantined our solar system. They're not going to allow it. They're never going to allow it. Which means if we develop a technology anti-gravitic and we try to figure out how to go through portals and go faster than the speed of light, there are guardians at those doorways and they will prevent it. They already do. Because we can't be trusted out there with political agendas and vicious, nasty emotions and subconscious misdirecting negative drives running spaceships in space, because somebody's going to push the button and blow things up sooner or later, thinking and feeling that way. They tried to do it on Earth already. Friends from out of town, from off-world, prevented that. That's still very highly classified, and it shouldn't be. The people on Earth who are classified want to get free of the burden of lying to everybody just as much as the mass of people want to know. And they're going to have to get off their fear of disclosure. And they are being given and will be given the help to do it safely without destruction on this world, if they will start in the right direction. It's simple. It's not about harming anyone or moving people in power. Nobody cares about running this governments on this planet. That'd be the worst nightmare burden for kind people to even think about it from other worlds. They don't want it. They want us to grow up and do it right, so we can go play with them. And then they'll give us the technology, genetic science, and healing, and all that stuff. What good is having a body healing, perfect with no disease, if the dummy running it doesn't even know it's not a body, and the thing grows old and dies, and that being dies in fear? What good is giving Earth people that technology if that's how they're going to abuse it? Selfishly, self-centered. See, they're not going to do it this way. I wouldn't. They are motivated to do it, but we have to grow up and accept their assistance on this world. It's been offered and turned down by political leaders here in the past. I'm not talking about tyrant races now either. Forget that. They aren't the predominant number of spacefaring races out there. They aren't. As you know, we go on these journeys and we are introduced to a number of beings that operate in the universe out of bodies as beings, as spherical beings, or in ships, or both. And they come from vast alliances of world systems. The Say rays aren't even known in the UFO and extraterrestrial community on this planet by anyone that I know of except through this work. They are the most advanced 18 to 25 foot tall physical body beings. They had them at the time, with more strands of DNA than we have, and we get our DNA and as human beings as this experiment from them originally, and they're billions of years old. And they're kind beings. They don't like to interfere. They created the races we call human, humanoid, reptilian, grays, all the whites, everything, mantis, whatever you call it out there, that become spacefaring and more evolved. That's just a higher genetic form that is designed for the Atman to be able to run higher faculties through it, the brain, the body of any of those bodies. At one time, all those races, after the Say rays were done with them, were kind and benevolent, running around the stars, and then negative stuff started happening. The Say rays retired into the background to observe what we would do with it. That was what they were supposed to do. They've returned into this universe. They aren't even originally from here. And they're beginning to, because their consciousness was changed, they're beginning to, how do we put it, inspire in the great races beyond us out in the Milky Way and other galaxies and even in other dimensions with many other beings. They're inspired to finish their work by instituting or bringing is a certain type of energy into reality that motivates people to use their imagination to only create that which will be of uplifting benefit to all life, not just life on Earth, all life. And it replaces or neutralizes negative and positive things, lower energy, good and bad, all that stuff. It just is a more greater power, and it's moving in one direction. And it's moving through the solar system, and there isn't any power on this Earth that can prevent that. And anybody in their right consciousness on this planet would embrace it. They would not want to prevent it. They're just afraid of change. They're afraid of what this is. But it won't matter. It's coming through anyway. As they experiment with this more, even though they stay classified, they begin to find out that this energy and the beings that represent it have not attacked them or taken them out of power. They know that. That doesn't mean that they are free to abuse things more. It just means they're given the opportunity to make change with beings who can help them make that change. And those beings are not on Earth at this time. If they are, they're secretly here and very well disguised, but they're generally not on this planet. They're here, they observe it, they fly in ships here, very greater technology than we have here. And they prevent nuclear war. They've already done that. That's about as far as they wanted to intervene here. That too is changing. The people that are on Earth right now, every single living one of them, as perverted as some are, as highly evolved as others, or as nice or mean, at one time were not humans on this Earth. They were extraterrestrials. They've lived other lives out there, and they've been made to forget and twisted and put on this Earth in ways and scenarios that go back 65 million years in a history they can't even put a finger on here. They're not taught in school. They don't remember it. They're afraid to remember it. And they're afraid to remember their own galactic history before they even found themselves unconscious in a body on this planet with no memory. And so people pat each other on the back and say that's normal. And every single living being on this planet down deep knows it is not normal. So they need to have a way and a method and beings that can help them recover the awareness that was taken from them without their consent before this life. And this is all doable. This is all possible now for the first time. There is a first energy that was emanated from the higher realities across the void and into the lower worlds to support and sustain them. It has a sound, it can be seen as a certain kind of light, but it cannot be heard or seen with physical eyes or physical ears. And yet when you see and hear it, it's more tangible than anything you can hear or see with your physical eyes and ears. The Atma actually hears through the eyes and ears of your body, but it also hears and perceives when it's out of the body. The body is just an extension for just seeing and hearing things in this parallel dimension of matter on this Earth. There are other parallel dimensions of Earths in the same space that look and operate differently than the one you're familiar with. There are 144 parallel dimensions in the physical universe alone that more advanced races can travel between, trade and have civilizations, and it's just amazingly large and wondrous. If we want to play among the stars here on this Earth and have the technology and the know-how to safely move out across the Milky Way into Andromeda and other galaxies, explore higher worlds out of our bodies and all that, we can. Even though the most frightened person doesn't believe any of this, under the right conditions, they can drop that where they're misdirecting their imagination into fear and negative things. Just turn it off and go do the right thing. It takes some training, it takes some personal effort, some self-discipline, but it can be done. We are not alone in the universe. Just the fact that governments have agreed to classify all knowledge of the reality of extraterrestrials after World War II doesn't mean they do not exist. If you knew how much money was spent through news media and through controlled corporations to keep that secret locked down, it would flabbergast you. You wouldn't believe it. The classified system, there's part of it that could be good. Like, for instance, if you're going to take out some terrorists, or you're going to, stop a war in China or Russia or Korea or something, and you're going to do something that can actually prevent that, you don't want to be telling that to the public. It could leak it to the wrong people before you're ready. That's classifiable. But the existence of extraterrestrials and their technology, which we don't own and don't have the right to suppress and lie to our people about, should be disclosed. Because that will help set the very people free on this earth and the leaders currently here. Otherwise, they aren't going to be, because they can't be trusted with it. So I wanted to say that and get that out. And this is for the benefit of all people on earth. I don't care if they're royalty or classified or presidents. I don't care. These are the people I work with. They're all seen as the Atma. You take away all the rubbish, all the subconscious misdirection and negativity, and what do you got? A godly being. Did you want to say something, Perry?
No, I was just having great experiences.
Oh, okay, good. All right, well, let me ask you something. Turn on your mic there.
Yes.
So when we're going through this, as you know, I work telepathically, which means my lips might be moving, but this is being sent out Atma to Atma, even if they don't know it, to the whole planet and everything in it, and then out in space beyond this planet. And it's coming from above and beyond this planet at the same time. So it's designed to help people remember that when these suppressed truths are brought to the surface, it helps them begin to recall, against all odds, against a subconscious misdirection, remembering that they once knew this. Somewhere in their being, they once knew this long ago. What backs up these words are what happens to people when they're out of their bodies at night, every night. Because they put the body to sleep and they're gone for 8 hours. They don't remember. They're not trained to remember growing up, so they don't. Most people don't. But they're really somewhere else, running the body on automatic. We call it sleep. There's nobody in there. There's no being in there. It's just a brain running, a heart and lungs and blood circulation, keeping it alive and breathing, but there's no one home. There's a link, an unbreakable link of a pure hue sound, first sound, between the being and the pineal gland of that brain, running it at a distance. The energy connecting that is not a psychic energy. It's not positive and negative. It can't be, a nuclear bomb could not sever it. It could destroy the body. But if that nuclear bomb was somewhere, radiation or beam weapons were used, it wouldn't sever that link. Okay, so it's important for people to know that, so that they're not afraid of leaving their body. Heck, they're afraid of consciously doing what they're doing anyway. That's hypocritical. I mean, it's for silly. They do it every night, and they do it when the body stops functioning permanently, called death. And then they have to deal with it whether they like it or not. So what we're endeavoring to do here is to get beings on planets and people running bodies to be aware of what they are, that has never been and never will be a physical body. That's a giant leap in evolution for people like people on Earth. So there isn't any negative covert agenda hidden back here off-world to take over the Earth, because tyrants have been escorted out of here. They are kept away from here now. People are suffering the effects of what tyrants have done to them in a long history going back 500,000 years, and not just in this lifetime. And that has to be healed or corrected or undone. And that tight coil of unconsciousness has to be unraveled gradually, so the person can live a balanced life while it's happening. If a person begins to unfold this way and then snaps back into or decides to try to do things with power or force or negativity, once they cross paths with the hue, that can have really serious repercussions in their life. It can destroy them because that energy, it's designed not to be and cannot be manipulated or controlled. We can co-create in it, and it will bring into manifestation what we imagine, but you cannot possess it or control it or dominate it or force it to your bidding or anything like that. It's a teacher, and it can be a severe teacher under certain conditions, and we don't want that. We don't want to be taught in a destructive way, because life on this planet has been wiped out many times in 65 million years and recolonized from other worlds over and over because the poles kept flipping. That doesn't happen anymore. That's been stopped permanently. People are going to find that out in time on this planet. How much that means, what a difference that will make for people to evolve over many millions of years without having a pole flip ruin all life on the world. Earth is very unusual in that regard. And it's the only one I know of that does that or ever did that. So it's not exactly been given the opportunity many other worlds with highly evolved humans and other races have had. How does that, when I say this to you, how do you experience it? I don't want to say how does it affect you, because you're a co-creator. How do you co-create with that in your own being?
During the time when you were talking, I have my own experience. Okay. I don't know how to put it in English. Even in Thai, I don't know how to explain. Sometimes it's so hard to explain people, you know. The first thing when you talk about sound and light, that the being is like a supreme, is seeing and hearing, not even with the physical body. So my experience was I was seeing everything exactly like what you said, you know, like there's no body really, just Atma, just the real being, and then everything runs in lower world as a physical form, just all in each plane, just to have their own experience on each plane.
Yeah.
And then and then when you were talking just before you asked me the question, this is the Atma, right? And the teardrops inside is like the experience you have had from billions of years. So whenever you focus on something, that can take you back to that time for you to learn to see what's going
all
on.
memory is there, but it's also recorded in the void of space. It's hard to explain, but the actual experience of each individual is in there. And each of those teardrops represents a higher faculty of creation, of co-creation. See the space, the sky around there?
Yeah.
Behind this blue sky and the clouds is a white golden light that's behind matter. It's the same in space that looks like black, that isn't. And there's one energy behind this supporting it all. The more advanced races have learned how to work with that non-nuclear, non-atomic energy that isn't limited by the speed of light. And they can get completely around what they call the limitations of the laws of physics by working with that energy. So that's important for people to know if they want to advance technologically, not just spiritually or as beings, but technologically as well, because devices have to be built that channel that void energy. If they want to have energy without polluting anything, no tailpipes and get all over the universe. The more advanced races use that energy. The devices they built will co-create or channel that energy, and it gets them around without even using energy or polluting anything. No energy is even used. Think about that, what that means.
Scott, from my experience and others' experiences, what I have learned is fear is the base of everything, you know, that keep people of recalling who they are, because they cannot go further if they are in fear.
Yeah, can you hold that up again? This is what a soul looks like. It's not two arms and two legs, not an astral body that looks like this but is transparent. No. That is what we really are. And that's why planets and moons and suns and stars are round, because they're patterned after their creators. All of us together in the source before the lower worlds were built were or made up that creator. And it is this that created the worlds of time and space. This is meant to be a custodian, a caretaker of such things. And this is what wakes up in a person when they really recover self and God awareness or enlightenment. It's not the brain that gets enlightened. It's this that's running it. And generally, that can be in the head or behind the body or above it or even in another planet and run a body here. It's not limited to time and space because the energy that makes us up is not made of atomic or nuclear energy. There are no protons or electrons or neutrons in that at all. It's very important. If you never find out what you are, and it's always faith or belief, you're never going to know. And if you never know, you're never going to be a co-creator with the source. So we want to get that awake in all people and all things. And it's not something that promotes a particular religion or is against any particular religion or against any particular government or anything else. It's beyond all that, way beyond all that. And it's moving through the creation, moving through this solar system. And it is going to have its way. And that way is to end this negative, constant recycling of people and things in just silly, nonsensical, unconscious ways. The universe and what we can experience out there amongst so many others is so vast and so beyond what you can even imagine. If you went to Nerexlum, you went to another planet right now in our Milky Way galaxy that has more advanced human life on it, it would be like heaven to you. But to those people living there, it's just normal. How do I get this across to people on Earth? That their world here on this planet is anything but normal. It is finally destined to become normal. People are going to have to go through some pretty dramatic changes to agree to have such beings come here and help us transform this place. And that's underway. As far as I know and what I've seen in my own explorations, far beyond this world, it's not reversible by any power or any race or any being on any level. That's pretty important because we want to co-create with that. We want to stop co-creating with fear and negativity, putting our fists up, governments fighting governments, political parties fighting political parties. That's not the reason we're alive running bodies on this planet at all. And people don't even know it. They have a clue. And yet I know from my own experience that every single being on this planet has the potential to recover this awareness under the right conditions at the right time. That's pretty amazing. It's not about spaceship rides. Anybody can have a spaceship ride. It's like getting in a car, getting on a bus. You go out and you go from one planet to another planet, and then there's this planet. Then you got to get your physical body on the ship and come back. It's still a physical body riding around space-time. So what? Beings who've done that all their lives for thousands, even millions of years, are used to it. It's no big deal to them. Oh my God, a spaceship for people on Earth, you know. Yeah, it can be hip, slick, and cool, and you can ride around on one, but even after a while, you get used to it, and you go, you mean I got to get on a spaceship, and it's going to take 7 hours to get from here, 500 light years away to Nerexlum? Oh, come on. Again? You know, everything's according to the perspective of your experience. When people on Earth have it being normal that they travel among the stars, the children will grow up with it normal. Their attitude about contributing to their societies will be universally contributing to all those worlds, not just Earth. Their consciousness, their IQ, everything expands proportionally. That's what we want to do here. So let's go on a little journey.
Okay, I will turn off my camera, okay?
Okay. When we go on these journeys, my physical body is in the sleep state. I put it in every night. And all that I'm doing as a fellow being is assisting you with a certain kind of energy to get your body to go to sleep while you remain aware. At first, some of you may just go to sleep because it's so uplifting and you feel so good and You start putting out the hue and all your negative things shut off and you feel good, your body pain stop. Okay, but it takes a little discipline to remain alert and to hear the words, which are telepathic. It's really not the words, it's the seeing of our journey where we go and my sharing it with you so you can see it. And then all of you, a lot of you will see other things I don't mention there as well on these journeys. That's normal. And eventually, as you play back this recording another time, you will get greater benefit from it because you'll hear and see and experience more details the second time around. That perhaps you're so caught up in it, you can't really remember on the return from this journey. Some of it, certainly you will, but maybe not all of it. Okay. The first half of the word we call human in any language, hidden in plain sight, is a connective vibrational word that human beings, at least on Earth and many other worlds, can send out even silently if they know the sound. And it mimics or turns on a connective link in the pineal gland from the being running it, not the brain, and links a link to the 0-point energy between and supporting all things. And what happens is the being sends a link to the pineal gland to get that body to run on automatic while it goes out on that link to other realities. The way we move around the multiverse as beings is through the creative imagination. The creative imagination is not fantasy and it's not made up in the brain. Daydreaming. When you daydream, you're idly sitting in a chair and you're looking out a window at an office and you imagine being on your ski trip on the weekend or up in the mountains, maybe if you're clever, even on another planet. And you wonder what it's like and you begin to see it. Your eyes may be open or closed and you can see these images. You know, that's called daydreaming on Earth. The being seeing it is not the physical eyes. The physical eyes will see what's around it, out the windows, in the parking lot, the trees or the mountains in the area on the physical planet Earth. But the one that is seeing this somewhere else imagination is not the brain or body at all. Whether people know this consciously or whether they do not. Yet. So when I put out this tone, it's helping the physical body go into the trance state we call sleep, meaning somber and automatic, while you go out and explore and see things. Begin to recover your higher faculties of being that allow you to see and know and hear things when you're not in that body. The one energy out there is not to be feared. It is not negative or positive. It is not dominated or controlled by individual beings. It is one living energy everywhere. It comes from a source very far below the worlds of time and space. And it supports all that is. The very center consciousness of that energy is changing and has changed recently, within the last 8 or 9 Earth years even, all the way up there and through the dimensions. And it is in the process of changing the way the lower dimensions of time and space are manifested, administered. When I send this out, it helps you put to sleep the physical body, your emotional body, that's on another dimension, your mental body, also on another dimension. And these go to sleep in lives you're living that you've been made to forget that you're running as a single spherical Atma. And that is so you as a whole round being, bodies are safe, they're not going to be harmed, and you can go out and explore and see things in a state of energy with beings that not only help protect you, but make sure that you cannot bring any negative emotions or imaginations with you on this journey. They will keep them shut off for now. With the sleeping body, and when you get back to it, they'll turn on and you'll have to learn mastery of them at your own rate. So I'll begin to put out these tones and then we'll go on a journey above the earth and on a little journey out into multiverse to explore awakening higher faculties and what we once knew. And this white golden light you will experience above the earth, that void that looks black in time-lapse photographies from Hubble and other things, to humanize the limitations of human eyes, you will see it as the white golden light it is. And then you're just like breathing it in and breathing it out. You begin to remember. So I'll begin those tones now. The first sound behind all life has a resonance to it. In the physical universe, it's like deep rolling thunder, not frightening, but calm, a gentle rumbling in the background of creation. When you imagine anything, imagine first someone or something that you respect and are grateful that whatever that is in your life. This is a constructive, uplifting, pure positive, imaginative use of a higher faculty of being. Because it's something that makes you smile inside, just kind of naturally. You imagine being at a black sandy beach in Hawaii, let's say, from wherever you are. You're walking on the black sands and they're smooth. You see the ocean wave crash. You can smell the salt air. And then you find yourself hovering above your physical body near the ceiling, wherever you live. This is just imagination. You are looking down on that body kindly. You can see it with its eyes closed, or open, depends on you, but closing them helps to open up the vision of the inner sight that isn't the physical eyes. And to hear from beyond the earth of the confines and limitations of human hearing. And you can see that body and you send good energy to it. And you look out from the ceiling through the walls of your house into the countryside where you live. Then you find yourself at 10,000 feet in the atmosphere, looking down on the forest or terrain or city where you live. And you realize whether it's day or night where you are, everything is lit up because you emanate your own light. And you look at the sky and the air, and it feels like you're breathing it in and breathing it out, but you are a spherical being. And then in front of you appears a body that looks just like you, perfectly, flawlessly healthy. Looks physical, and it's smiling back at you with the white core of your being. And it's made of pure energy. It's a projection from the core of your being so that you can represent this to others. When you look at the sky around you and you look carefully as the Atma, you'll see there is a white golden field of energy behind the movement of molecules in the oxygen in the atmosphere. And we're going to move on that white golden light behind all physical matter. And we find ourselves hovering in space above the planet Earth, far above where the space shuttle would fly or where the International Space Station is. And you look down and you can see the polar ice caps of planet Earth. The Earth is turning on its axis. You can see the continents you're familiar with and the oceans. And you can see the moon circling the Earth. But it's not turning on its axis, and it's covered with meteor craters, and there's no oxygen atmosphere. Very little gravity. It always shows the same face of the people on Earth because it does not turn on its axis. At least not yet. And you can see the sun way off in the distance. So when you look around, you can see the billions of beautiful blue and red and orange, yellow suns that are out there in the universe of different ages and sizes. Billions of them, and they are clear as day, even though behind and between them is this white golden light, the void of space. And we, all of us on this journey, are hovering as a spherical being in a circle around a friend of mine who you've been introduced to before. His name is Ambassador Turelian, and he is a representative of a race of beings called Seres, S-E-R-E-S. And he's showing you a body. Yours is relative to the size of what you have on Earth, but his body is 18 feet tall. He has slightly pointed ears, slightly curvy, long blonde hair on his shoulders, big blue eyes, bigger than human eyes. Looks to be about 36 and like a Greek god standing there. And his gown is thin, sheer, white kind of gown. And he's holding his two thumbs up. There's a white golden light around them. He's holding a certain energy in place for us out in space above Earth. If you look around the energy between his hands and between all of us and between the Earth, the moon, and the sun and the stars and up beyond this galaxy, you'll see it's one energy and has a white golden visual texture to it, or light, and it's humming. And you can hear that in the white core of your being, which is really comprised of this same energy, but from a much higher dimension or reality, far above the void known to certain esoteric groups on Earth. Turelian is showing you a body form he had over 1 billion years ago. They aren't from the Milky Way. They're not from Andromeda originally. They're human, but they have more strands of DNA that makes up their body forms than we have. But they did. He's showing you a body they had before they immortalized him. And they didn't do this in the way you would think. They dematerialized the molecular structure and stored it in one of the teardrops of the Atma you see hovering above this form he's showing you, made of pure energy. Looks just like a physical human man, but very tall. So they don't carry around the burden of having a body walk around on a planet. If they want to manifest this form on any world, they will draw from this white golden light. It'll form a golden grid pattern, like a checkerboard pattern, around the DNA, and then it fills in the space, and presto, you have a Sayre's body walking around. When they're done with it, they dematerialize it and store it. This is very advanced. The Sayres, Ambassador Trellion's people, brought into existence, this is great scientists they were, representing the source or prime creator, all kinds of forms of bipedal life that were evolved genetically over time so that beings, atmospherical beings, could run their higher faculties through those forms and play with bodies and run spaceships or play on planets. But they knew and remained knowing who and what they are. That isn't a body in the process. The Sayres and the vast numbers of races that comprise the Galactic Interdimensional Alliance of Free Worlds, which is centered near the core of the Milky Way galaxy, represent more than 450 million spacefaring races in just a little under half of our galaxy. The Sayres were responsible for bringing or inspiring that organization into existence a very long time ago. When you look at planet Earth with its polar ice caps from here, you can see the white golden light that's in the space between all things. Surrounding the atmosphere of the planet, it goes down through the atmosphere of the planet and supports the atmosphere and the shape of the planet, and it's turning on its axis. In other words, material creations float in this other energy. And you see the vibration suddenly brighten in the atmosphere of Earth, and now it becomes a planet that has no polar ice caps. And you look at the moon here, and it has a full oxygen atmosphere, no polar ice caps, 5 dome cities on the front side, lakes and rivers and little streams and all of that. And as it turns on its axis, which it does as it moves around the Earth, you can see 2 big dome cities on the mountainous area on the back side. In each dome are 3 4-sided, golden-sided, quartz-capped pyramids, which are devices. On the Earth, you can see one large continent centered over the equator from the left to the right hemisphere. It extends almost about a third the way below the North Pole and extends almost to a third of the way the South Pole before it curves irregularly up to what you would call the Eastern Hemisphere. You can see through the Earth, because you are an Atma, there's another continent 2/3 its size, centered over the equator on the opposite side of the planet. You can see down near the middle of the equator, down by the third of the way up from the southern pole, a crescent-shaped or half-moon-shaped, pointing upward, glowing emerald green beach. You can even see it from space. And with your capability as an Atma, you can see, like you have a telephoto lens for eyes, you can see through the clouds, and you can see a single snow-capped mountain several miles inland in a tropical paradise at the bottom part of that continent, a blue-green luminous ocean, and a domed city nestled at the western lower plateau, quite large, that curves over the top of 3 golden-sided pyramids. And we are in space, hovering around Turelian, having an experience of what the third higher parallel dimension Earth looks like in the physical universe. It isn't like the Earth you know at all. Like different layers of an onion, each world, the one you're familiar with, and all the galaxies you see vibrate at the same time rate, molecularly. In the second parallel dimension up from here, which is different, molecules vibrate at a slightly faster time rate. In this third one, they vibrate a little faster. Well, this is how parallel dimensional realities on a molecular level function independent of each other and in harmony. Turelian is moving, and we're in a circle around him, and we're going to move down right into the planet's atmosphere very quickly. There's the spherical beings we are, and the body form out in front of it looks about 36, perfectly healthy. And you find that we're moving down the atmosphere, and suddenly you find that you're looking down at your bare feet, wiggling your toes in glowing emerald sand. It's glowing about a foot above the beach, and it's a curved crescent-shaped beach. Well, we come this way, I guess, for you guys watching me. And in the distance, up in the right, beyond the forest, is a snow-capped mountain. To the left, a dome covering a city. And at the beach, where your toes are wiggling in this emerald sand, you can feel this warm and cooling energy move up your legs, up through your torso, through the top of your head. You look up smiling. It is an uplifting, pleasant feeling. You feel elevated, exhilarated, and then it moves up into the white core of the spherical being you are, running that projection of a perfect body. And it moves out into the green layer, several layers wide in concentric circles around the white core of your being as a single being. And it lights up some of those teardrop-shaped higher faculties. This green ray is about recall and remembering things in the physical universe on parallel and higher dimensions within the physical universe itself. Then you find yourself in space again, hovering around Turelian. In your physical form, you can even see little grains of green sand on your feet. You reach down and pick them up, and you look at them in space, and you can see they're made of little finely polished, rounded emerald crystals that are charged and glowing. There is a planet called Zetranami, which is near the galactic core of the Milky Way galaxy we live in. And it is the headquarter planet of the Galactic Alliance. There's also an alliance of world systems that cover a little more than half the Milky Way galaxy, centered on a planet in the physical dimension where Earth is, called Zentranammon 1. And those benevolent people have recently joined in a collaborative, harmonious way. So in reality, the entire Milky Way is now under the direction of advanced kind races. When you look out in space away from Earth, you can see what looks like at first a black void. Then it becomes a white golden light because you're seeing it with the perception of the core of the Atma itself, what you really are. And Turelian is opening an interdimensional portal, and it looks like, right in the fabric of space, you see all the stars in the distance, it looks like a little blue-green tunnel forming around a radiant cobalt blue star. And then it spirals open clockwise. And it widens, and you can see it's moving forward, and there's a kind of a purple, light purple void in the middle of it. And what we're going to do is travel through this interdimensional conduit across the galaxy to a planet near the galactic core. It's not in the core, it's near it. So suddenly we find that all of us moving in a circle, like planets orbiting around the sun, We move through it at tremendous speed. And you can look through the walls of this blue-green water like a light and see the galaxies, the stars in our galaxy spinning by, passing us by. And in a moment, we come out the other end and look behind us, and you can see this vortex dwindle and vanish. And you are now hovering above a planet with many other big suns nearby than you ever see from Earth. Big blue-white giants, large yellow suns, red dwarfs, all kinds of different things out here. Colorful nebula. And you're looking down on a planet that's 4 times larger than Earth. And you're looking on a planet that has several moons around it. And in the distance, from up in space, you can see that those planets, this particular one, circles in the 3rd planetary orbit around 3, a trinary sun system. There's a blue big giant there, then there's a yellow sun orbiting that further out, then a red dwarf. Some of the more advanced cultures, planets orbit trinary sun systems. This planet has no polar ice caps. You're looking down on it. You can see the kind of blue-green, slightly pinkish cloud cover that covers this planet in sparse areas. You can see there are domes covering cities on the moons. And then you see one big, large, white, ivory, kind of moonstone-colored dome down on the planet's surface, just above the equator. And there are different land masses there and lots of little oceans around it, no polar ice caps. And this dome is quite large. It would be the size of, probably about the size of a huge soccer stadium, or bigger than a football field. And under it, you can see through this translucent dome and you can see figures. And you look out, you can see tall, crystal glass-like minaret towers, some spheres on tripod legs, some different kinds of odd-shaped architecture, very beautiful, like glass and glistening blue-gray metal. And you can see a sparsely populated domes and different buildings in a jungle setting that forms this city with lots of space for people between each other. And you can see down through this dome, and it becomes transparent. And what you're looking at, as we get nearer to it, is a blue circular disc-shaped central stage, and then curving upward like a coliseum in a circle are these white leather-like seats in 15 rows. And there are beings sitting in chairs, human, humanoid, and other types of beings, bipedal, and they're wearing a white robe with a sash from the right shoulder to the lower left shoulder. And these are humans and other races that are members of the Galactic Alliance. There's 5,000 people in this arena. Space between them represent over 450 million spacefaring worlds. Standing on the stage, you begin to see that Turelian comes down through the dome, and we move effortlessly right through it, and we're hovering in a circle above him. And then the Atmi sends this 18-foot tall body down, and it stands on this stage, raises its right hand, and nods a respectful salutation to the beings. They stand and do the same. Now, this is Ambassador Turelian. Under his right arm, he's holding a big book. It's made of blue-gray metal sheets, but it has printing on the front of it. It says the Sayres Agenda. And he opens it up in front of him, and it floats in the air. And we're looking at the movements of letters that look like Egyptian hieroglyphics, and they're constantly moving. You can see a white golden light as a beam coming down into those pages, motivating those moving letters. And he lets that book float there, places his hand over his chest, and the energy coming from that beam from above this dome, beyond the physical universe, is moving up into each of us in the core of our being, down into the pure bodies we've created that's sitting in front of it, and out to all 5,000 members. They are experiencing right now our journey from Earth to them, and they are looking up and acknowledging our presence there. These beings know who they are. When you look above those 5,000 members, you look and you see an Atma hovering above each one of them. You see it hovering above Turelian. We're hovering above that in a circle around the Atma that is Turelian. All he's doing is just demonstrating the new consciousness or ray that's moving through the omnipresent first sound behind all creation now, or what's called the Hue expansion ray. It motivates beings to only create with their imaginative capabilities that which is of an uplifting, beneficial nature to all life. And then the book closes and vanishes. Turelian's body moves up off the stage, levitates up, hovers below the Atma is, and we find ourselves hovering in space, looking down on Zetranami and the three suns. And you look towards the galactic core and you see massive numbers of suns circling around a center. This is just the physical universe of the Milky Way. And this Zetranami is in the same location, parallel dimension, as the Earth you're familiar with. Then we find ourselves hovering with Turelian instantly high above the Milky Way galaxy, spinning on its axis, looking down on it. And he waves his hand, and we look out and see all the billions of galaxies, vast space between them, out into the physical universe. And we look down and we begin to realize we're moving upward at a tremendous rate until the Milky Way dwindles to a point and vanishes below us. Until you see all of the physical galaxies, billions of them, dwindle and vanish. We are in a kind of a pale blue atmosphere now that's everywhere around us. There doesn't seem to be any form here. No worlds, no planets, no stars, no moons. But it is light. This place we're in right now is above the etheric plane. This means we've bypassed the physical, astral, causal, mental, and etheric planes to move into this arena of energy. It's pure energy. There's no negative nature here whatsoever. And you can find yourself, this body form that looks just like you, breathing it in. It's like water moving through your lungs and moving out. And it's soothing. And you begin to remember that this is the natural ability of you as an Atma to do this kind of thing. And you look up and you find that we're moving across now, moving upward across and up to a long white sandy beach that's luminous, and it goes to the right and the left as far as you can see. The blue, pale blue atmosphere is behind us, and we're moving up to a jungle that lines this beach. And the jungle is made of crystalline type trees that are luminous. And we're hovering above these massively tall trees, looking down on the inland just past the coast, and you can see a clearing of a white marble floor with a botanical paradise of garden in concentric circles forming around what looks to be like a white alabaster fountain in its center. And off in the distance, several miles, is a long crystalline structures of a mansion or a palace kind of thing that lines the base of a long snow-crowned mountain range. When you look at this fountain, about 15 feet across, it has scalloped white edges. It's on a circular base, on a platform with a circular marble circular seat with carved ornate legs circling it. And in the center is the statue of a being standing, who's bronzed of skin, with a bald head, 2 golden bracelets on his upper arms, and he has his hands at his side with the palms facing outward, and this white golden light is pouring from them, filling this bowl, and it's pouring over the edges of this white scalloped edge of this fountain in a shimmering, even, smooth, glass-like sheet. And it vanishes when it touches the ground. Standing near a pathway, a little brown pathway that winds itself up towards those crystalline palatial estates along this long snow-crowned mountain range, in this vivid blue atmosphere, is a man standing there with his right hand up, greeting us. And he is the man the statue represents. This is called the Atma plane, or the first plane above the void. And it is one of the places, the last place we demark from the higher realities above here, before we make journeys into the lower worlds of time and space and run bodies. He sees us, he knows we're here. It's a welcoming gesture. If you wish to, you can place a hand over your chest, the body form that's there, and just nod. Just a respectful nod. This being represents the true name or first sound. His name is Sat Nam, but you can find that out for your own, by your own experience. And we're going to go up over the long mountain range, snow-capped mountain range, into vast countrysides circling around Turelian, and you begin to see that there are orchards and vast green fields of grass, violet and green and red. And there are animals from Earth roaming around in these fields. And there is an Atma hovering above each one. And we're going to go down, find ourselves hovering near the ground in front of what look to be cows, certain kind of birds, animals that are not even on Earth. And you'll find that they can speak with you with vocal cords or talk with you in your consciousness telepathically. Now, these are beings who are experimenting with these forms to know what it's like to be a higher evolved being running these kinds of forms, whether they want to fly as birds or do whatever they want. And they're learning to respect all life here, because above each of those animal forms is an Atma, just like us. Each of you may have a different experience with a different type of animal here. They're all here, and many you will not see on Earth. There's a vast ocean in the distance that is a luminous blue-green water. And we suddenly find ourselves many miles near a coast, a circular, many miles wide, circular white sand. And off in that ocean, you can see what look to be like whales and dolphins levitating up out of the water. And up above them is an Atman. We're simply going to communicate with them. This is above the worlds of time and space. There are several whales and a number of dolphins, and one or more of them may speak with you or say something, and you can talk back with them and ask them what the experience is like as an Atma to run one of these forms. When you see these dolphins and whales invite you, and they plunge into the ocean, and all of us, as the spherical Atmas, plunge into the water with Turelian, and we go down many miles to the depths of this ocean of light and sound, because you can hear and see it. You'll find there are domed cities on the bottom of this ocean. These are experimental training facilities for the Atma plane. Then you find ourselves hovering above this fountain in Satnam, standing there near an outer edge of this white marble floor, circular. And he points upward, and we start to move up in between the 6th division, major dimension, and the 5th, until we're hovering above 6 snow-covered mountain peaks, looking down right through this huge floating circular landmass, many, many, many miles across. And there is a cobalt blue, radiant, bright atmosphere surrounding this floating circular landmass that goes into infinity in all directions. And you can look right down through it and see Satnam down there, and then he vanishes. This cobalt blue, brilliant atmosphere, you can breathe in and breathe out as if it's like water flowing through you and moving through you back and forth. And you can see a body form that looks just like you, standing in it, breathing. It's pure energy. It's not a physical body. The Atma here knows you as an Atma here has nothing of any negative nature. It cannot be brought across that void and brought here. Off to the west, you can see a tall administration blue glass tower, polished smooth, many, many stories high. And it rises up from a circular white marble floor up very high, and then there's a flat and kind of clear spherical area, and it goes up to a minaret point. And inside it, in the center of it, the size of a soccer stadium, is a white alabaster fountain. There's no statue here, just a shaft of white golden light moving up and down, filling the bowl, dropping over the edges in a glistening even sheet and vanishing down the shaft of this tower. That beam comes from many dimensions above here. And inside this dome, you can see there are 3 levels of white marble, flat circular seats in 3 tiers. And there's several thousand master teachers from this academy we're at, the Hue Expansion Ray Academy, that are here to witness our journey. And they stand, place their hand over their heart, nod. We do the same. We're hovering around Turelian above this fountain, around this shaft of light. And above each of those 2,000 people are Atmas like us. And then Turelian moves right into the shaft of light, and we all, on this journey, move into it with him. You're going to feel this energy moving up and down through you, through the layers of your being, harmless, but charging. We're getting a charge. The sound you hear in that beam is like millions of men and women's voices singing the hue, which I demonstrated at the beginning of this journey on multiple levels. Beautiful until it blends into one round, solid, whole tone. And then we find ourselves hovering above the entire Hue Expansion Ray Academy, the 6 mountain peaks in a circle. Some of you will see other things here, but they're down at the base of that blue glass administration tower are white marble roadways. They extend in equidistance from its base in all the directions like the spokes of a bicycle tire. They go through the mountain range, through tunnels, come through a hollowed center, out the other side, and end on this luminous white sandy beach that completely encircles the outer circumference. And down this western roadway, you can see a first turn to the right in a clearing with a tall, golden-sided, quartz-capped pyramid. That's a training facility. And off to the left, another clearing with a tall, white, moonstone-colored dome building like a silo, like a grain silo. And as the road continues, there's a right turn and a left turn and a right. It goes out to the beach several miles away. And these are training facilities, and they exist all over this floating circular landmass in this cobalt blue light. When you look down, you can see this blue-green water vortex forming, and it goes right down through the landmass, opens a portal, and all the way down it, you can see us still hovering around Turelian, near the planet Earth you're familiar with, polar ice caps and the barren moon. And we find ourselves there. And then each of you find yourselves hovering above your body, near the ceiling of where you live, looking kindly down upon your sleeping form. It's in the trance state called sleep. And you're sending this experience as much as you can, gently in a thin white golden beam into the pineal gland of the brain, out into the brain until it extends itself to about 2 miles wide. And then the energy continues outward from there. This flows a dynamic new inspiration through beings to only create with their imagination that which will be of an uplifting benefit to all life, not just life on Earth, all life in the grand multidimensional creation. When you're ready, open your eyes.
Okay. Thank you for the great journey as usual. Many places to visit, no?
Well, Zetranami, the void, the realm of the Atma, the first realm above the void, and into a plane especially created between the fifth and sixth realities, the Academy itself. There, people co-create new ways of doing things with what we call the source or prime creator to help make the way the universe works better. Particularly the lower dimensions of time and space that, if Earth is an example, are quite messed up. They need a lot of help and healing. So I will leave you and the listeners who have joined us on this journey with that. And I want to wish them all great goodwill, all constructive, good, positive energy, and wonderful dreams.
Thank you everyone for watching. Please thumb up, subscribe, and share this video. And also, I will put the links of Scott's books under this video. You can find it out and go through the links.
Yeah, I will show you them again. It's important for someone who may just tune into this recording or find it and never seen the work. That's the Sayre's agenda. These are actual, this is a ship stationed in the ice rings of Saturn. It's over a mile long. Bridge controls on each end. It's a Galactic Alliance vessel. It's here to quarantine our solar system and to help protect us from destroying ourselves. These are actual original art. They're not from the internet. This is Mark Sandfield, who's in a solo camping trip on the High Sierra Mountains in California. He's being attacked by these guys who pretend to be human and aren't, and he's saved by a human aboard this ship. And his journey to recovering who he is, that is not a human unconscious on Earth begins. There's a special technique section in the back that will help people work with what we did tonight. And then there's the Emerald Doorway. You can see what Perry showed you earlier right here. These are original. These are actual actors in costumes that portrayed these parts for this cover, like this guy. So you're going to find there are 30 illustrations in here. This event you're seeing, these are humans and a master teacher and a very evolved being called a Dren who has anti-gravity abilities as an organic silica-based creature. They're hovering on anti-gravitic disks. This is Calum. That's his ship. This is a doorway to the fifth realm we visited, the fifth realm. And this is the prime creator itself, comes down from any dimension above it. And what these beings don't know, except this guy, is that one of these is hovering above their heads, just smaller. And this is an event that happened just after the poles flipped 100,000 years ago and destroyed the continent of Lemuria. And another colony continent on the other side of the planet called Atla, or what people call Atlantis, but this is further back than the Atlantis people talk about on Earth. And it was a colony. The land masses were destroyed, new land masses rose up quite violently. So you're going to find out about Galactic Alliance and extraterrestrial, including this blue-skinned woman named Melina. You're going to find out about their involvement with ancient Earth and how that puts them in present time on this world. So this is more about the past, and this is more about what's taking place out there right now that is different. So I'll leave you with that. And the links to the primary website and others will be at Perry's YouTube video. So you can click on it and have a good, you know, play it back again sometime when you won't be disturbed. Have a cup of tea and then go on the journey again.
So we see you all next time.
Good night, everybody.